All right, so I want to show you guys this time. So I'm going to have to use my computer screen, which is my big ass TV. This one is very complicated, and the only way I'm going to be able to do this is to actually show you each part. It's going to keep going and be very complicated, so hopefully you'll be able to just get it from watching it a couple times. I would actually suggest watching this maybe 2-3 times because it's going to be difficult. So, in saying that, this is my third video. It'll probably be about 30 minutes again. So let's go. So the first thing is, a lot of you've seen this that are math people. You've seen what phi is and you know what pi is, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to relate the two as they do with each other, and I'm also going to talk about male and female. So, for the first thing is, everything starts off as a base. Everything starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's all going. But in the order that it's usually adding two things together, 1 and 1 is 2. 1 plus 1 is 2, and then 1 plus 2 is 3, and then 2 plus 3 is 5. That's called the Fibonacci sequence, which you're actually going to see on this one. If you look at the Fibonacci 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and that thing is going to then understand. And as you can see, I've got a picture of a face, because the Fibonacci shows you that it goes into that whole phi thing, because this world is a calculating world. It is adding two things together to get to the third. So what I wanted to show you is this. Everything starts off as a unit. You've got one thing. And I'm showing you this. If you take 2 1s, you're going to get 2, which is the next part. So the first thing is, let's find out what phi is. Phi is when you average 1, which is this whole unit square, and its circular component, which is if you go halfway up and you take 2 units, 2 to 1, you get the square root of 5. And I'll show you how that goes about. So, it turns out that this is the unit square, this is 1, and this whole thing is half. If you square half, you get 1/4. If you square this right here, you're going to get, our 1 times 1 is going to be 1. Half of half is a fourth. So this is 4/4 plus 1/4 is 5/4. If you take the square root, you get 5, and half of 4 the square root of 4 is 2. So that's where they get the square root of 2. And when you average things, of course, when you're averaging them, these things right here, you're averaging half, which is half of that distance, and then you're taking it from the next dimension over. That thing is going to create a circle. So that is the arc part. That's the part that has the circle. So those things are what are going to make up everything in the world, because you actually then will have a male and a female component. So, as I've shown you here, what I can do is I can show you what it looks like on a face. And everybody can actually do this. If you look at this, who is this good-looking guy? That good-looking guy is me, of course, as a teenager, you know, so you have less of the problems in your life. So, anyhow, if you take a look at this, this is a unit square, and as you can see, it makes a nice square around where the face is at. And what you'll do is, if you had gone halfway, notice that that arc then comes up here. It actually is true that this is half plus the square root of 5 over 2. That is 1.618, and this distance is also then going to be 1. If you take a look at, take those two numbers, if you divide it, you'll get 1.618. If you take this divided by that, you'll get actually 0.618, which is kind of crazy, because then that means that what you're going to be getting is either This divided by this, the larger number is 1.618. The smaller number divided by is 0.618. But regardless, you always get 0.618. And that's how it works for nature, because it goes up and down in nature. And the sequence is starting with ones, and that's what I started. Notice there were 2 cells. And then we're going to go 1 to 2, show what that triangle looks like. That would be like this. If I took this distance is 1, 1 and 1, and this distance is 1, so this would be 1 distance and 2 distances. So that's where you get the 1 and 2. And I'm actually going to show you how you get a triangle with 2 and 3, and then a triangle with 3 and 5, and how all of those are actually the most important. So you always are starting at the base level, the smallest level that you can possibly get to in all of these. So, after showing you this, notice, really if you double this, it's about 55. If you double this, it's about 34, and you can see what those numbers are. You're not going to get exact. It's not going to always be 1.618 and then the rest of the numbers. Maybe it's 1.619 or more or less. But you try to approach that. That's actually the golden ratio that makes you more attractive, in essence. So anyhow, as you go through all of those numbers, I'm going to show you how each one goes. We'll go back to this, and I'm going to show you how 4 over pi is the ratio that you're setting for male and female. So let's go back up here. This is what it looked like. Remember where we had the face? Phi is an area of the ratio of 4 over pi. How do we get 4? How do we get pi? 4, if you take this as 1 unit, from 2 to 3 is 1. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, that perimeter is 4. If I take this distance, it's still 1. You put a circle in it, circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. Well, the diameter is 1. So, I'm not going to calculate it all the way out, because it actually turns out that the number they give you is off. The 3.14159 is not the correct number. It is based off of a Greek approximation, and I believe that's 6/5 something times a bunch of other stuff. And that's where you get that number. But I don't think it's correct. I think this is more of a correct number for it, and it makes a lot more sense. I believe that there's a Dr. Jain, Jain. He actually proved that. I think it's Jain 108. If you watch his YouTubes, he goes and he actually proves this. So anyways, so the 4 over pi, and I want to show you that ratio, take the ratio of 4 over pi, if you square it, you get phi. So that's what phi is going to be. And since it is an actual area, you have to square it. So that's the reason that you're squaring this whole thing, is that you have to make it an area. It's not a length, it's an area, because whenever you find phi, it's a picture of something. And that picture usually is some sort of two-dimensional object. So like, for instance, a shell. A shell starts and it'll come around until it makes the end of the shell. But it follows an area to an area to an area to an area. So all of those are just areas. Now the ratio is the 4 is the male part. It's the square part. It's the conscious mind. It's the matrix. Now I definitely want to tell you that the mind is the one we're going to use, but you can use the body, but those things are switched for male and female for the body. Anyhow, pi is the female part. Obviously, females are circular. They are also they are also the ones that receive, they're nurturing, whereas men are more of the grabbing and the taking of things like money. That's why they're financed. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. They're also the subconscious. Females are the subconscious. Males are the mind, the conscious mind, which is the matrix. That's this world out here. So phi is 4 divided by pi squared, which is 16 over pi squared. So that is how it's represented here. And if you look at that, as I showed you before, another thing, if you want to notice, that phi is all over. You'll actually see it all over in the world, everywhere pretty much. You'll see that this distance is also the distance to your nose, or the distance from here to your lip. If you take a measuring device, it will also be from here to the end of your nose and from here to the other end of your nose. I would suggest taking a picture. You could take a picture and then just square it and then do that, and then you can find all the different parts that are from that 0.618 and see what parts are 1.618. And notice that then those things will show all of the different parts of not just the face. You can do the hands too. They also go by that. You're like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so on and so forth. So a lot of parts of the body and just everything is set off of that. And then I also want to show you this part right here, which is, this is the pyramid at Giza. It's not the pyramid, it's the King's Chamber. The pyramid I will show you on the other one. This is the King's Chamber. Remember I said that there were a few of them. First off, this is 2, this is 3. So I told you there was going to be one that was a 2, 3, and then square root of 5 triangle, because 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 9 minus 4 is 5, this is the square root of 5. Another really kind of cool thing about the chamber is that this right here explains why this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle, because this is square root of 5 and square root of 5. And when they move to get over from here to here, those two square root of 5, the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is actually 5. That's how you get that. That's why it is that number. And if you look at the base is actually these two. This is 4, this is 2. It's 2 of these 2 by 2s. So it's actually a base unit twice. So it's a square twice, which is kind of nice because everything is based off of a square. It's a basic unit. It wants to make everything as easy as possible and for you to be able to understand it as easily as possible. So here is a 2, 3 square root of 5 triangle. You also see a 3, 4, 5 triangle where this 5 is actually catty corner. This comes down and you can actually make an X from a 3 here. And most likely how you can make, or the easiest way to make anything squared up, because you want something to be 90 degrees, if you go 2 on the top and make an X, that's a 3, a 2 by 3 X, that's a 3, and the top and bottom that are 2, that will square up perfectly as a 90-degree triangle, and that's important. Now, that X would look like the Roman X. If you've seen an X, it goes X, but the top has it like that. So it is possible that the Romans are trying to tell you, boom, use that. So those are the different types of triangles. Again, those all go back to this. That's 1, 1. Those are the 2 base cells. 1 and 2, that gives you square root of 5. Then the 2, 3 gives you that square root of 5. And then the 3, 4, 5 triangle is there. And you start going into stuff, and we'll start going even into octets. So now I want to go over a little bit about the Fibonacci, because the Fibonacci is kind of crazy. It's probably one of the coolest things that we have. You have The Fibonacci is just adding 1 and 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, and so on and so forth. But it's super important that it goes down to actually completing our entire universe. If you notice that the first 1, 2, 3 is 2, every 3, then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 will be divisible by 2. 1, 2, 3 divisible by 2. Every single time. And notice it goes back 1 number. So these adding sequences go back 1 number for their division. That's important. So you're going to notice that 1, 2, 3, 4 is divisible by 3. 1, 2, 3, 4 is divisible by 3. So again, I just want to show you that those things are going to be very important. Because once you get to 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's divisible by 1 less, which is 7. Now the only one that's really not, and maybe this is only true, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that's because we have a base of 10 as our numbers. And so that one won't ever have any problem. It will be just fine all the time. So, once you've looked at those different numbers and you kind of just go back and forth about how it works, it turns out that this is why when you get to this 8th number, this is 3 times 7. And actually in the last one we had talked about the universe being split into 7s. And that those 7s were of 2. And here's where we're going to kind of get like the crazy part, that we're going to start looking at my next part, which is the pyramid at Giza compared to a sphere. So, let's look at that one. There's the chamber. This is the pyramid at Giza. So if you look at that, you can kind of move it around up and down. It kind of looks cool. I'm just going to kind of let it be where it's at. So, here's the thing. Here is the pyramid. It is, as you can see if you look over here, it's 22. So if you go 22 and 22, that distance is 44. So I'm going to say times 10, that's 440. And that was actually the distance that they used in called cubits. This was 440 and the height was 280. So it goes to 28 and that number is right there, as you can see. Hopefully you can see all the way over there. Yep, you should be able to see. There you go. Just wanted to make sure you could actually see all the way over. So that means this is 28, this is 22. And so you're going to get really a kind of interesting triangle from that. And that's this triangle that goes up here. Oh, I should also first mention how it works with phi. Now, the way that I figured out how phi is the square of 4 over pi squared was I actually did this. I said, okay, I'm going to assume, because I know that this is true, that the perimeter is equal, and they'll say the circumference of the earth. Well, basically they're saying that those two things are equal. I don't know why they said the circumference of the earth when they could have just said a circle. So what they did is they just took 2 pi r, or pi d, which is the circumference, and then they set it equal to the radius, and the radius for this thing is equal. And that's literally how they do it. I would call it pyramiding the hemisphere. In this case you see a circle, but you really want like a hemisphere. You want like half of that to actually get what you want. And so those things will work out that when you put in the radius of 1, that you're going to get the pi over 4 as your calculation or your 16 over pi squared. It works out quite nicely. And then when you look at this, this is 28 and this is 22. It turns out there's a special type of triangle where they found out that you can have pi or that you can have phi in it. It turns out if you take this, which is called the slant height, and you divide it by the 28, what you're going to get is you're going to get phi. You're going to get the 1.618. If you take and you divide these two, you're going to get the square root of phi, which is 1.27. If you take this and divide it by the bottom or the base from the center on out, that's going to be 1. So there's a special triangle. I can't remember right now at the second, but it is a special triangle, and it is a 1 square root of pi, pi. And that is where you get pi. It's because what they're doing is they're taking that circumference and they're making it in to the square. So again, this whole thing has to go back to this. This is what it is. They're showing you that the circle is the square when those two things are equal, when the female circle and the male, the square, are equal. That perimeter, that length, when it's equal, that's natural. And everything bigger and smaller will fit fractionally. That's why you get 1.618 and 0.618 when you divide them, because it's a fraction of the other. And it's actually made up, 1.618, which is phi, is actually 1 plus 0.618. Because if you have this, you can just take off a 1. And remember, I showed you on this one over here that when you divide it, you get one or the other. You get the bigger version or the smaller version. And the smaller version plus 1, one individual unit, gets you back to the thing. What's even crazier is if you take 1.618, so what you should do is square it, you'll find out what it is. So do that and tell me what you get. And then I'll tell you it's 2.618. So when you square phi, when it gets bigger, it's up by 1. When you get smaller, it's down by 1. And so that's how this whole thing works out, is that it's fractionally set, and that's the only way really that you can set nature, and that's why everything is set off of these numbers. Everything has a really great relation to it, going up and down, and all of the others. Let me get really quick into this last little part that I wanted to get into. Something that I found out. If you look at this bottom part, this is the actual bottom. And you see, okay, I'll see if this is easy. If you see this, this is the base, okay? Of course, running from here to here, we know that's 22 because the whole thing is 22, 22, which is 44. I've got that right over here. Then the top is 28. Well, we know that, but it will also be the same as that sphere. So I took a place where those two intersect, where the perimeter of this intersects with the sphere, so I know that's 28. I know that distance is 22. This turns out to be this number, which is 17.32. Now that part is a little crazier, because that 17.32 is actually 10 times the square root of 3. And square root of 3s are very important in the fact that you'll see them a lot in nature. I don't know how this does with the rest of everything, but I think at some point I'll figure it out. You can't see that, can you? Let's see. Dude. Hopefully that will cue it in. Okay, it might be a little harder to see when it focuses on me. So, 3D images are a little bit harder to see also. that's where you're going to get fuzzy. So I'm going to kind of get out of this whole thing, and let's see if I can defocus and focus it back in. Okay. Well, anyways, so all these have to do with really kind of interesting things, and as far as they work with phi also. So it will turn out you're going to get your phi numbers here. You'll get pi, and so that's how pi is related to phi. I think that's probably it, especially because I think we're about done as far as time. I might have like 4 or 5 minutes, and I can't really think of anything I necessarily want to think about and say. So I'm going to go on to the next one. I have a lot more to talk about. I mean, there's just really thousands of things I could talk about. I think on the next one, I might go into more of the matrix. Now, the matrix is the matrix of the mind, and then the female is the subconscious, and how they work with numbers. And I'll relate everything to male and female and how they work together, because that's actually, we have males and females only for one thing. It's to discover the nature of the world, so then all nature will then go here. And so that's how it is, and I hope that that was a good video for you. I'll go on and we'll talk more about the nature of man and woman and how they work within this whole phi and pi thing. All right, thank you very much, and have a nice day.